Good morning, everyone. This is Ron. It's Saturday morning.
Did we lose Ron?
I think so. I'm gonna put us on pause for a moment.
So, okay, let's do that again. Okay, it's Ron. Saturday morning. I hope you had a good week. Uh, Looks like a pretty day outside. We'll start and see if we have any questions. Any questions about anything? Um, if you don't have anything, I just want to got a couple things. I saw something too that has me a little excited, a little inquisitive to know more about it. And I'll share it with you in just a second. But I was saying to Pastor, uh, I don't know where we are right now, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not complaining about it at all, but it's in a different place. And you know, what the things we look at, the direction we're going. Uh, Before I could kind of see it, but now is there an echo? Is that from me? Can anybody hear that?
Yeah, I hear it too.
Is everybody on mute? Okay, thank you. But I hope we're all excited about where we are and where we're going. Do I need to log off and come back in, you think? I'm not sure where that sound is coming from.
Was that Nick speaking just now where it was garbled? Oh, it sounds garbled for everyone.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I was
I
asking
hear
if you had.
I hear a little feedback though when I try to talk. I'm hearing something, and I'm not sure if the recording is picking it up.
Probably. Yeah, I hear it too. I don't know what's causing it for you, but I don't hear it for anyone else.
I tell you what, I'm gonna back out. I'm gonna leave and come back. Okay. Let's see if that helps.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. I hope this helps.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's better. That's better.
Okay. Thank you. I ran across something that I thought was interesting because to me, yes,
There it is again.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I thought this was very interesting because it sort of talks about what we've in its own way what we've discussed in the past. We were on last Monday when Pastor talked about his dream in the last few days. When he talked about the book and the light from the book and the the hands, and Audrey made reference to Merkabah. and what that means and how that sounded similar. You know, the swirling of the energy going in different directions, the light, the spirit, all that, and we're trying to gain understanding of that. That's what we're looking at Monday, and she and George were discussing that and giving us some understanding of it. So I looked at something, trying to find some more information on that. And I stumbled across something. I stumbled across something called the Egyptian soul, which has 3 parts. And anybody who familiar with this, please help me with this. But it's the Ka, the Ba, and the Ak, AKH, and I'm pronouncing it Ak. But what it said I thought was interesting. Ak, okay. I'm just going to read part of this for you. It says that the Egyptians believed that the living were responsible to help the dead journey into the afterlife. The living had a duty to help those who had gone before them and those who were coming after them. So they believed that the human in this world was sort of the liaison for past and present. Isn't that what we've been talking about? This thing that that we call life and being human and understanding that it is the human that has the ability to recognize and see that you are spirit, see that you are Elohim, you in a sense sort of stop time or stand in the midst of time, and you are the past and the future. The present collapses everything into one, and there's nothing else more important than what. So we looked at it slightly different, but I just thought that was interesting that they believe that you had a responsibility, not only that you could, but that you had a responsibility for those that come after you and those that went ahead of you. The other thing that I thought was interesting, because it shed a light on what the tombs were. Guys, stop me in a minute now, because there's a couple of things I want to read, and I was hoping we could discuss these things. They believe that building a tomb was a way of being an interface between time and eternity. So what did they do with those tombs? The tomb was used to preserve, and the purpose of the mummifying the body was, I want your body to resemble what the life that you had when you were on this side. So the mummified body not only included the foods and stuff that you liked, but the mummified body, it was supposed to resemble you and had all those things in that tomb that were important to you. So that there was a part of the soul called the Ka, Ka, that left and came back. And here's the interesting thing, how I haven't found more information or haven't looked at it. The Ka would leave every day to visit the sun. The sun would be present at sunrise. And I don't know the reasoning of all that. But I just thought all of this was interesting because we've always heard of tombs. We've always found, I'm talking about all these valuable things in tombs, but no one has ever explained why. So these were things that were placed there that were a part of your life when you were living, and they all had a specific purpose. But I just thought that was interesting. Any questions about any of that?
It's sort of similar to the idea that, this body encapsulates the spirit, entombs the spirit. And we talk about how the spirit leaves the body to commune with the greater spiritual kinds of things. So it seems to be the same concept.
Yeah. Yes. And I hope to follow up on this and do some more research. I also want to know what was their idea of you having a responsibility for the future generations. What did that actually entail? What actions were you know, what actions were you to take to make sure that that was a transition there. But anyway,
Um,
Can we,
okay.
sorry, can we ask phone number ending in 186 to mute, please? Phone number ending in 186 to mute, please.
thank you, Audrey.
Is it muted?
Nope.
Okay. Would
Audrey,
everyone
ending in
please
what?
mute your phones?
Would
Ending in
everyone
186.
Okay, I'm gonna try muting them.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And if
You're welcome.
186, if you have something to say, you can unmute yourself. I almost lost my thought. What was being said? Let me come back to you guys. I tell you in a moment. It's about the temple, if I may. Doctors, and I'll call you back. Okay. I mean, I'll get back with you in a moment.
Okay. But it was, you know, just the thing that I opened up with what I was talking about was I like where we are. It's an unfamiliar place. I think it has affected our study. It especially has affected how we see things. And so I feel excited and I feel good about where we are. And I was really just kind of wondering how you feel about this. We're in a different space, and that does not mean that we're lost or even feel lost or feel any fear that we're in danger, but we're in a different place, and it even feels a little vulnerable, but it also feels exciting, and it feels like there is an opportunity here. To me anyway. So, but I just tie that in as we're learning and seeing different things. Any questions or comments about that?
Good morning, everyone. One of the things I do want to add, based on what you stated earlier, Ron, about standing in the gap between life that has already moved on and present life. One of the things that I do with my great nephews, I take care of all of their haircuts. And when asked, "Hey, Jojo, thank you for what you do," blah 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 blah, and my response has always been, "I'm just doing what my daddy would do." So just to be an uncle that was the first title, or the second title that I ever had. Was before I became a husband and father, I was an uncle first. And being an uncle and an aunt, those are two very crucial titles in family structure, because some children are not going to go to their mother and father when they're vulnerable or when they're struggling with something. They may go to an aunt or uncle. So that's all I want to add of. That's the activity that I incorporate of my father has moved on, and my great nephew, who really doesn't know me that well, or my great nephews, they really don't know me that well, but just staying in the middle of being responsible for their haircuts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Yeah, I really think, and someone else can help me with this. I really think being part of a family, being part of a unit, is probably our base. It is our training ground. It is the place that we learn to be mature. It is the place that we learn to love. It is the place that we learn to sort of looks outside of ourselves and see that everybody is not like us, that other people have different ideals or thoughts, and you still are responsible to a family unit. And I think that is the nucleus of a family is sort of a first step kind of thing that I learned to be an uncle. I learned to be an aunt. I learned to be a father, a mother, a grandparent. But these values that I learned, these spiritual concepts that I may not even know that I'm possessing, or to be carried on, not on only me giving them or showing them and being example to the other parts of my family, but they are to be examples in my community. They are to be examples that when I see something, or not only the thought becomes who is my neighbor, as you see in the scripture, but the thought is who is my nephew, who is my son, who is my daughter. And I think that's the link that we are pulling together now, bringing this community together, bringing all of these things that we learn, and the beauty of it when I was talking about uh, us understanding humanity in Jesus when he says, call himself the Son of Man, the power and the energy behind that is what has catapulted us into where we are now. And what we see, that was a stronger spiritual concept than we ever thought we were dealing with. So these energy fields that each and every one of us have become and we have become collectively has a grander purpose than we can ever know. So when I link that with not knowing where we are, it is not necessarily, we feel vulnerable because we're not certain of where we are right now, even where we're going. But that uncertainty can be a strength. That uncertainty is what keeps us in a meditative state. It may keep us in a state where we are constantly searching for light. So, but thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think that based on what is being said currently, we are talking about our family extensions. It's not necessarily biological family extensions. Our major family extension was community, and when we talk about making efforts to of correction, excuse me, with those in the family, there are times when the correction is more effective coming from the community. However, we have been able to see the results of not having in a community that exists today. We have neighborhoods, but we don't have. Did I go out? Hello?
For a
Or-
second, yes.
Yeah, for a second.
Okay, I think your communities are not neighborhoods. Communities are a place that we have denigrated since we got a little bit of education and able to buy a house in a neighborhood. Because in communities, people visited each other. In communities, there was usually one house in the community where all the kids gathered. Now we don't want kids on our lawns. The community was the house where the kids gathered, but also where they ate, where they spent time watching TV or playing with the other kids. But now we don't even want anybody in our homes. they're too precious to us. So we have lost that sense of community. And in doing that, we also lost a sense of self. And regardless of
You still there, Pastor?
thing keeps, this keeps going in and out. So you're missing my point, probably. Regardless of how much we learn about the light of Kemet and our African heritage, regardless of how much we learn about spirituality, without having those sentiments of community, we still have nothing. And we have not even really embarked on the journey, because the nature of our being is community oriented and not selfish. We have cliques, we have groups that we function with, but as far as community and truly interacting within our community, we don't do that anymore. We don't do that because we are so caught up on taking care of ourselves or protecting what we have or what we think we have, as opposed to making sure that we support a community, because a community shares, a neighborhood doesn't. A community cares, a neighborhood doesn't. A community does not judge on the basis of what you have or on the basis of who you are. A community embraces everyone within that community, even those who are less desirable are embraced by community. So I think when we talk about family, we cannot do that without extending that to the communities that once existed. And to be quite frank with you, the only reason communities existed in the beginning is because that was a trait that came with us when we were stolen from Africa, the idea of community. Even when Africans were enslaved and were not able to speak the same language, they cared for each other. Even when they were brought in from different places, having been sold or at an auction, they took care of each other's children. We don't do that anymore. And we have to get back to that mindset if we ever intend to truly embrace the light of Kemet and the essence of our origin. Thank you.
Thank you. As Pastor was talking, he reminded me of something. I remember when I was a kid and I was in elementary school and integration happened and all this stuff. And I'm trying to remember if I was in the 5th or the 6th grade. I remember there was this guy who had an impact on my life. He was really the first white guy that I knew, got to know from in a personal way. But he came to the school one day because before all of this happened, you had little league, baseball, basketball, those kind of things. And he was a baseball coach. And he came to the school one day and he said, I want to integrate this thing. He said, you know, you guys interested in playing baseball. And he said, I want you to come to my baseball camp. So we get to this camp and there were other coaches out there, but he was the only one that had black kids at his camp, at his team. And it turns out that he had ended up having an all black little league team, because all the other kids had started out there, went to other teams, except his son. So his son was the only white kid on our baseball team. Well, our baseball team went something like 13-1 or 14-1. And none of us made the all-star team. none of us got any type of awards or anything, but the impact of it was it ticked everybody off so much that they wanted to split our team up and have some of them on each team. And something that started out as hatred, I think, really kind of helped turn the community around and educate everybody. And it turned out to be a good thing. And even past that, as we grew as kids, I remember us being able to go and visit each other's houses, but you could never go in the house. You could be out there in the yard, but you couldn't go in the house. And so as Pastor talked about being a neighborhood and a community, I suppose we were both. The neighbors were the adults, but the community was the kids. And looking at that, even Jesus talked about as you become a little kid, or you have to become a little kid. I kind of gives me a sense of what he was talking about before you get all these hangups, before you see all these barriers that come up between you being a kid is being a kid, and all these before you're taught all these other things. So just something that popped in my head as Pastor was talking about this. But any questions about anything else that he said added here?
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to add, since we were mentioning the Egyptian concept of the soul and the spirit, and as that relates to family and community.
Yeah.
So we exist as, I guess a way to describe it would be as a collective soul families or soul groups that have access to each other's feelings, thoughts, experiences, etc. And when we come into physical experience, we try to recreate that in some way in order to complete the tasks that we have set for ourselves and we have set for sort of our graduating class, so to speak, when we come here. And that sense of community is very much the means by which that energy transmission between the people in that collective soul group is accelerated or reconstituted here in the physical. So when that sense of community is divided up and destroyed, it makes it that much more difficult to remember those energy and spirit connections between people. And they don't even have to be sort of blood related, quote unquote, because depending on what it is that you need when you come here, you may incarnate into some family that's not related to you in any way, but yet you are still connected as part of the same soul group to somebody you meet as a friend, for example, in your lifetime. It just depends on, what the particular situation is. But the reconstituting of community, which is what happens when you have a nation, and ultimately a nation is supposed to be just a big community, that allows for the transference of the energy and that spirit connection, and it allows for the awakening of the awareness of the ways in which we are connected in terms of energy and spirit that much more quickly. And it's kind of like a spiritual organ existing sort of in the connections within a group of people that is doing its spiritual job here in the physical for the overall body of the creator, which we are all what you call like cells or organs of. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions or comments on what Nick said or Pastor said?
Yeah, the question I have for the group is, by way of the removal of the African American male out the house, how did that have an impact on communities turning into neighborhoods?
Anyone? Did you hear George's question?
I did. I think it did have an impact, but not as much as you think. The biggest impact on communities turning into neighborhoods is the belief that we had arrived. When we started to accumulate enough money to move into other neighborhoods that we were not welcomed into, that was the inception of the destruction of communities. Because there were quite a number of people whose father was absent in the house, or the male was absent in the house, but they were still communities because the men in the communities became the male figure in their lives. Money, 3 times on purpose, money 4 times is the reason. Trying to be more European than European is the reason. Trying to be accepted by white folks is the reason that our communities began to fall apart. Assimilation, not integration, destroyed our communities. So it did, yes, George, the male being removed from the house has a continued impact, but it's not so much moved from the house as it is the male being imprisoned at a young age, going to jail at 14, 15, come back, cannot live with the parents. Only thing he can do is hustle in the street because he can't get a job. And then he goes right back to jail during a childbearing period of his life in his early 20s and 30s. And when he gets out of prison again, life has passed him by, so to speak. And that in itself is an added effect to what has been the demise of our communities from the beginning. I hope that helps.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Good question. Anyone else?
Yeah. And this may hopefully not off topic, but the reason the Israeli Defense Force calls its tanks Merkava, that's the sort of code name for the tanks that they use in their army, is the result of the complete religious inversion of the spiritual understanding of the Old Testament in particular. Because the Merkava coming out of Egypt is also mentioned in the Old Testament, of course. And it is the chariot or the vehicle for the soul, which is what it also means in Egyptian, but it's more broken down. And that is just indicative of the extreme sort of swing back in the other direction away from spirituality that region of the world has, and why it's so much the center of the sort of architects of the material prison that the sort of proverbial powers that be want to build. Like that area of the world is where all of the sort of oil-based money that is the core of capitalism is based or is focused in that region of the world. And I just point that out as an example of the depths to which that original spiritual understanding fell into this state of confusion and selfishness, essentially. And that is ultimately the force, well, the temporary obstacle that we are learning how to overcome as a collective spiritual family here in this physical experience. Thank you.
That's an interesting name. I did not know that. That's wow. That is more than a coincidence. And anyone else?
That's what we've been talking about the last few sessions, the Merkaba.
Yeah,
I find it very interesting that they would name their tanks Merkaba. I
yeah.
mean, I see it, but it's like their source of destruction is named Merkaba. Interesting. Very interesting. And I agree with Nick that it's like a turnaround of what it really should mean. They've taken it to mean something different, to mean destruction, as opposed to the spiritual upkeep and the spiritual uplift of the people.
So what do we do with that? I mentioned at the onset, opportunities, right? We're at a different place, and we spoke about opportunities, and this feeling that I mentioned of vulnerableness is a good thing. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you focused. So what do we see in that that Audrey and Nick just mentioned?
Yeah. Good morning, Ron. Good morning, everyone. This is George. I'm fairly, again, it's just enlightening just to be able to hear us talk about the Merkaba, and in terms of how people can change the originality of what Kemetic term means. So when we talk about Ka, we're talking about spirit. And with the spirit, we have Ba, which is the soul. So when we talk about the spirit and the soul, and we hear, again, and I want to say Mer, but in terms of what Nick and Audrey said, it comes down to our spirit and our soul. Now, in the soul, there's 8 characteristics of the soul, and it all relates to the ages of looking at conception and looking at resurrection. And in those ages, there's characteristics that is good to have an understanding of, because we can appreciate it when we look at, again, Ka. And Ka, as I mentioned, talked about spirit, but it's the age of recognizing our senses. You know what I mean? And in those 6 senses, that's the foundation in terms of us being able to look at how do we unite all 7 characteristics. And Amu, which is the 7th characteristic, talks about bringing them all together in terms of the ages and what the ages represent, in different ages as we grow. And so I think it's something, again, to look into, but I really appreciate hearing, the explanation a little bit more in reference to our conversation. So I think there's a beginning of it all, and maybe how sometimes people will change it for their good or for their purpose, but how do we go back to the beginning to appreciate the Kemetic teachings of Kaba or Merkaba? I'm done. I want to share those thoughts.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that. And while you're talking, what you remind me of, see, this started, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe, when Pastor talked about his dream. And Audrey picked that up when he talked about the book. It is no coincidence that this came about before Nick, because Nick didn't know we were having these conversations. At least I don't think he did. Unless he listened at the videos, but that he comes on and he mentions this, he sheds light on it and opens it up, and we had already seen it, been looking at it from a spiritual perspective. So as we don't understand or realize sometimes, maybe we do understand the impacts that you're having on the universe. Because I'm like Audrey, there's no coincidence that they named their vehicles of destruction something that should mean just the opposite. So this is awesome to me, that we've been talking about this, and we'll continue to talk about it as we gain understanding. But this is those opportunities that we were referring to in the very beginning. Anyone else?
I think in terms of the energy, or dealing with the energy of what those concepts actually mean, sort of what those spiritual concepts actually mean. We say do the thing we always do, which is correct. Just be aware of and learn to seek the true meaning of the thing as we come across the concept. But the Merkaba in particular is a very sort of deep metaphysical and esoteric thing. And it represents essentially the way energy moves around you, the way you can use energy to help you move through different realms, different planes of spirit. So there's the sort of basic shifting of the attitude that I think we do, and when we say put things into macro, that happens on a energetic level somewhat, but that specific concept becomes, I think it is healed more so by really applying those principles and understanding how to utilize the energy of what that is within your own experience. And that just comes with practice, as well as being aware of the true nature of the self and always seeking to activate those things within that self. And that probably was not a good explanation, but I think there are specific concepts like that, like the Merkaba, for example, which have been taken to such low levels of.
Yo, Nick, mute. Nick, you're on mute, Nick.
You're on mute, Nick.
Oh, sorry. His siren was going by. But I was saying there are specific concepts like that that have been taken to such low levels of confusion and distortion that collectively, I believe that it can only really be dealt with when there are people and groups of people in the earth who deal directly with what the energy of that thing is. And I'm saying that the Merkaba is a real metaphysical, spiritual, energetic phenomena that is something that you learn how to essentially activate when you yourself grow in your spiritual awareness of self. And when you grow in your awareness and ability to move among the realms of spirit, I'll just put it that way. And that is something that happens over time with practice, etc. But I just want to mention that because there are other concepts, I believe, like that. There are true, looking for the phrase, true energetically powerful things like that we have in various ways completely inverted and turned into things of religious confusion and selfishness, etc. And I don't believe they will be fully addressed energetically in the macro. until the true original spiritual understanding of those things is activated and sort of lived and realized within us and all of those in the earth who are seeking to grow spiritually. And in the meantime, we do what we always do and begin shifting that attitude within ourselves and within our own ability as a collective to influence the macro as far as the collective understanding of these things. Thank you.
I agree with you 100%, Nick. If we look at the Macabre, it was for a spiritual ascension, as you were saying. And for them to name their tanks the Macabre speaks more about them than it does what we are talking about now. Because it is a continuation of what has been happening rather since Ptolemy became the first Caucasian to be a pharaoh in Egypt or in Kemet. And from that point forward, everything that was used for spiritual understanding, spiritual ascension, for our stability in the community, all those things were repurposed for selfish reasons. And the tank being named the Macabre is carrying them to their spiritual victories. And their spiritual victories is the destruction of everybody who doesn't look like them. This is the continuation of what started in our 451 with the Dark Ages. And if you look at what happened between 451 and 1500, when the Ginsburg, 1400 rather, when the Ginsburg Bible was printed, what you will see is a repeat of what's happening right now between Israel and the rest of the world of people of color. This is important. This is an important factor to note because this is the first time in history that the whole world has been against you Caucasians seeking to commit genocide against a group of people. And there would not be a tank called a Macabre if it was not for the United States making sure that Israel has the money / material to bring it into fruition. The way that we are going to begin to see how to, as some Egyptologists noted, work the Macabre, which is not working the Macabre at all, is how to understand not only the purpose of Macabre, but how to appropriate the mysticism of Kemet, and is through the movement of us spiritually through different phases of our understanding of spirituality. How do we get to that place? We get to that place by understanding that, and I'm going to say something that may be offensive to some of you, but it's not my intent to offend you at all. You can't reach people if you're trying to be offensive to them. However, the truth sometimes offends. The more that we begin to understand the light of Kemet, the more we're going to begin to see that between 451 and 1454, the scriptures were, everything in Kemet was rewritten, and it was called the Bible. They took all the scrolls and they took all the writings out of Kemet. All they didn't burn, they used to write what ended up being the Gutenberg Bible. And what we're going to begin to see is that 99% of what's in the scriptures is an error in relationship to what was originally written. We're also going to see that, and I can show you the errors if you would like to see them, especially during this period of Easter. The biggest errors are there are very obvious there. But what we're going to begin to see is that everything that we have been told and shown is a fallacy. For example, why is it that Tuttenheimer has a bust in Egypt in the museum? Why is it that all of the people who are associated with Kemet in terms of the pharaoh, even who Alexander put on the throne, why is it that they all have historical representation in terms of busts and writings, but you don't see any writing as it relates to Jesus in terms of the Bible until 451 is when you begin to see the Catholic Church talk about a Mother Mary or the Mother God or the Christ Mother. They don't even talk about the Christ child until that period of time as well. And the reason being is because this was an appropriation of what was in Kemet. And we're going to see that Christians did not come into existence with the Catholic Church. Christians came into existence with the first European who sat on the throne in Egypt. And why do I say all these things that may be confusing to you? Because it is imperative that we understand that what we have been duped. And yes, some people are going to be offended. Some people are probably not going to get on these phones anymore. But if you are here to hear the truth, then you should open your mind to the truth. And anything that I say or anything that we say in reference to what we're talking about, whether it be in the scriptures or whether it be out of our Kemet, research it for yourself, and don't be like some people are. You believe all the things that you can't prove, and you disprove, and you disbelieve everything that can be proven. That's how religion keeps us in bondage. Telling you, I know it's the truth because I feel it in my heart. But if you feel it in your heart, how come there is no proof of it anywhere except someone telling you that you feel it in your heart? When we get into understanding these things, then we will begin to see that we don't have to work the macabre. The macabre works us. Once we begin to free ourselves from this bondage of religion, once we begin to free ourselves from this false thing called the spirit, and begin to embrace true spirituality, then we will begin to automatically move according to the dictates of true spirituality. But first, we have to understand, if we want to get the truth, we have to move beyond the Ginsburg Bible that we use to this day. We have to move beyond what the Catholics has given us. We have to move beyond what the Greeks has given us. We have to begin to see the only truth on this earth when it comes to spirituality comes from the light that's in Kemet. And without that, there is no truth. So I say all of that to prepare us for what is to come. Because I promise you, I don't know what form is coming in, but it is coming. Especially when we look at today, this weekend. We look at this weekend, and when we talk about Jesus being resurrected on this weekend, let me tell you what's really crazy about that. Something I never said before. My mama died on August the 14th, 22. That's when my mama transitioned. August the 14th and 23. My mama transitioned on August 14th, which is on a Sunday. August the 14th, the next year was on a Monday. So why is it that Jesus, if Jesus was resurrected on, let's say, for example, if Jesus was resurrected on April the 7th, then why is it March the 29th this year? The day of a death does not change. The date doesn't change. So why is it that Jesus' date changed? How is it that his death always falls on a Sunday? How can that be possible? That if you go follow this Gregorian calendar that would be given, how is it that his death and resurrection always falls on Sunday, as opposed to it being on a given date like everybody else's death? His birthday is on a given date, which is 25th. So how come his death is not? Why is it that in one account of going into the tomb, it was Mary of Magdala going to the tomb alone, and the stone had been rolled away? That's in John. Look at Matthew, and you will find that she went to the tomb with some other people. And when she got there, the tomb was still there. Angel appears and rolls it away and sits on the stone. Why is it that Mary goes into when the disciples get there, because Mary and John leave the tomb, go get the disciples, they come, they run into the tomb, they see nothing, he's gone. But then in Matthew, he's in the tomb and he speaks to Mary. So the question is, why are all of these accounts so different? They are different because, number one, John was written at a later age. And if you read the 20th chapter of John, the latter verses, I think it's 30 and 31, it will tell you that John was written so to make us believe that the resurrection of Jesus is true. And Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15 and 14, Paul says that if Jesus is not be risen from the dead, then all of our preaching is in vain, and so our faith is also in vain. So if that is true, then you look at the accounts and you cannot find a historical account anywhere of what's written there. Only what was given to us after during the course rather of the Inquisition. If that is the case, then that means that everything that we have been preaching and everything that we've had faith in is empty, it's in vain, because there is no consistency to the story at all. Even written in the scriptures, there's no consistency to it because of the way that it was written by different people during that 1,000 period, the 1,000-year period of the Dark Ages. We have to look at these things more closely. And again, it is not my intent to be offensive to anyone. However, if you are uncomfortable with this, I understand that. I am uncomfortable with it. Yet, I still pursue it because it is my objective to understand the truth so that I can understand me. Because you will never know who you are until you understand and embrace what truth really is. And truth is nothing like what we think it is, no differently than what we thought God was. We were looking for God and looked in the mirror and found out we've been looking at God all along. At some point, when we began to look at the discrepancies between what was original and what was given, then we're going to find out that we were searching for truth, and we found truth in the places that we had been the places where that had been deemed as being pagan to us. That's why Egypt/Kemet is called a pagan land of those who worship multiple gods, is because they are hiding the reality of what truth is. No one other than Caucasians ever had a pantheon of gods that they a panacea of gods that they worship. The African has never worshipped anything other than one God, has always known that there was one spiritual entity that brought into existence everything that is in existence. The multiple gods were worshipped in Greece, they were worshipped in Rome, and they were worshipped in the Catholic Church, in the Baptist Church, the Methodist Church, because the communion table is one of the gods that's worshipped. And the pulpit is another God that's worshipped. And the one who stands in the pulpit is another God that's worshipped. So having said all of that, I say this to lay a foundation for what is to come very soon. Thank you. And again, I agree wholeheartedly with what Nick was talking about when he was talking about the spiritual, or the esoteric nature of the macabre. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Any questions about what Pastor just said?
I think it's fascinating that this has all come up at a time and place when we need it, so that we reclaim truth, as opposed to it being made mundane by these other people. We're reclaiming it and reclaiming it within ourselves And once we do that, it can go into the macro so that other people can reclaim it too. So, I mean, I had no idea about what the Israelis were doing or calling their whatever, but it all came together right at this time and place.
Yeah.
So I think that's fascinating. But it's also the work of the Spirit. Thanks.
Thank you. You bring up something interesting. I'm asking you guys to talk to. Desire. We mention it all the time, but desire is something strong, something you crave, something that you long for, right? Desire is also a mindset. So as our mindsets change, and Audrey just mentioned, as we change, you're putting it out there in the macro. You're talking about mindsets. You're talking about changing mindsets. I was speaking with a guy at work, a guy that, good guy. We're work friends. We don't hang out after work, but we're work friends. A guy that I have a lot of respect for. Strong Trump supporter, and I don't talk politics with anybody, but just he really can't really give you a reason why, but I think about I didn't think about rather his mindset. We're at a different mindset, and so you can talk to him about this, give him logic all you want. That's not going to change him. So speak about desire a little bit, and we talk about putting things out there in the macro. We're talking about changing a mindset. As yours change, our mindset changes. That's what feeds the macro. So there has to be a correlation for every other human out there, right? Does that make sense? Anybody have any further explanation or can make that make sense for me?
Yeah.
But you have to be human. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, yeah, if you've heard the term, and this is sort of related to politics or something, but there are horseshoe issues, meaning two people, they can go in completely opposite directions, but eventually they band back towards something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And this is exactly the same when we talk about people who are MAGA Trump supporters or whoever, when certain issues come up. And I think it's weird how there's a lot of Republicans saying stuff about how they're like anti-corporate and they're for working people now. But anyway, my point is that desire always bends back towards the core of the issue if the desire is ultimately the same. And the desire is mostly the same, regardless of wherever you find yourself on the political spectrum. It's just that desire is manipulated in different ways, etc., depending on where you are. But that desire ultimately is for the establishment of a harmonious nation, a harmonious, prosperous, comfortable, situation that human beings can live in regardless. That is universal, and the ways in which that gets distorted are always sort of played upon by the powers that be, etc., who have their own agendas, whatever. But ultimately, the desire is for something very, very similar. And that's why it ultimately leads in a place that looks more and more similar, the more extreme the actions of the powers that be, etc., become, because we all begin to see that they're completely insane and they've never been, for anything that an actual human being is interested in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, George. How are we doing, man?
And I just want to, respond to, what's being said. I think when Pastor, mentioned to, look in the mirror, but there's a Sufi proverb that says, I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God. And so again, the proof of desire is in the pursuit to know thyself. And so again, we're just, digging, a little deeper, in terms of just coming into the first principle of Ma'at when we talk about truth, honesty, and integrity. I just wanted to share those thoughts in terms of what was just said.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I think I'm excited about this morning because I think we can see the fruit of our labor. We touched on something here that we've been reaching for a very long time. As has been said, those tanks and whatever spiritualness terms or concepts that are being used in a hateful way, we just tapped into it, and that energy is going to be sapped away from it. Naming those tanks was a way of our desire for truth, our desire for peace, our desire of harmony is what pushed that in that direction. And that is no coincidence that those tanks were named that. So we just touched that. We just touched that energy, that force that is of energy that is being used for destruction. And as Pastor said earlier, I forget how he worded it. I don't know what the rest of this is going to look like, but your desire, your peace and harmony, your meditations is all at work here. The macro and everything that we started on when all of this came together, and even me, as I've discussed with Pastor, my impatience in some of this, like I want to see more happening in the world. It's happening before us, and I just didn't recognize it. I don't recognize it. So as we stay the course, my request to us is let your meditations be continue to be pure. Let your gratitude and your desires to be one and to see yourself as enlightenment, and let all of this come to be. And as we I see this now as a sign to me anyway that we're in a good place. We're on the road. We're on the journey that we set out to be on, and I think this is a good thing. This is not a vulnerability of any kind. And I say that, I used to use that word because I don't know any other word to say we don't know where we are, we don't know what the outcome of this is going to particularly look like, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When you're in it for the long haul, your desire is for change, your desire is for mankind, your desire is for that community we keep talking about. The shaping of it is not something that we are responsible for. Not in a direct way. So I don't need to see it.
I have just a comment. Merkaba, light, spirit, body, which means balancing all of those in a way that we become a light body. In other words, our consciousness is enhanced. But to name a physical entity like a tank, whose purpose is to destroy, as has been said, an entity that has divinity in it is blasphemous to me. There is how can there be a greater blasphemy than that? Deny that entity, Palestinian, whether it's other people of color, or whether it's Hispanic, whether it's Black, to deny the divinity in each of us, and to use something that we call a spiritual term in such a way as to dehumanize them further, to diminish the divinity further, and destroy them completely. That is total blasphemy. It gives new meaning to me of what the word blasphemy is. It's denying the God within, the God that I am. That's what blasphemy is. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. George, you said earlier the phrase, I went looking for God and only found myself. I went looking for myself and found only God or the creator. I probably mentioned this before. There's a phrase that comes out of Kemet that is, the gods are immortal men or humans, and humans are mortal gods. And that fundamental understanding that we, as we've been speaking about, are the creator expressed and present in physical experience,
Yes.
is something that represents the greatest amount of confusion in terms of the sort of white supremacist, et cetera, powers that be, et cetera, because their understanding of what God is completely distorted. It is distorted because they understand things by projecting essentially their ego onto what is, instead of understanding the means by which to become aware of what is already, without the need to project anything onto it. They see themselves as God because their ability to understand what that is confused and distorted by their own ego. And so they put limits on it. They create artificial hierarchy. They put themselves at the top of it, and they say, everybody under us, you're worthless. Because I'm God. I defined it. God is defined by whatever it is I am, because I have used my vast powers of the intellect and my whatever to come to the conclusion that it is I. There must be the closest representation to God that exists. But they think that because of their inability to know what that is. And that is the greatest source of confusion that is sort of at the core of that mentality, represented by white supremacy and everything similar to it.
And
that's-
that,
Go
Nick,
ahead.
Go ahead.
no, I gotta say, Nick, that is amplified if you read the note from the Chalcedon Synod that was held in 451. It was stated pretty much as you spoke it, in terms of projection. Anything that we did not project as truth, anyone who thinks differently than that or teaches differently than that will be terminated. That's white supremacy. But to add to that a moment, George, and I'll be done. If you think about that, just like Barbara was talking about, the blasphemous nature of naming the tanks of Macabre, we are labeled to be less than human. And is that a projection? I think so. Why? Because humans don't do what animals do. A snake can bite you and go home and go to bed. A lion can kill you and not think about it. A shark can rip your body apart and it doesn't bother it. So how is it that you can lynch someone, burn them at the stake, skin their body, take a woman in Valdosta, Georgia, simply because she wouldn't get off the sidewalk for a white woman, hang her, cut her pregnant stomach open and let the baby dangle on the natal cord and then stomp it to death? How can you do that? Humans don't do that. So what would that be? Would that not be more in line with a lion or a shark that has no recriminations about what it does in terms of terminating life with that type of brutality. So my understanding about that is this: when you are able to do that, then you are projecting me to be less than human because you know that's what you are. And in order for you to become what you were created to be in terms of being human, your not only that must your projections change, but you must have a desire to change also in terms of you should have a desire to be able to express compassion and empathy and have some regard for human life, as opposed to being a destroyer of it. And I see the naming of those tanks no different than what I just elucidated in reference to lynchings and its relationship to not being human. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. George, were you about to speak? Nick, I'm sorry. Were you done, Nick, or would you have more to add?
I was done. Yeah.
Okay.
So what we've done in this 2 hours, as Audrey has said, is that we've recovered truth. That's what resurrection is. It's not a specific day or specific time of the year. It's or a specific season. It is every time we recover truth. And so what's in the macro, as has been said, I'm just reiterating what's been said by several of you. What's in the macro is what's reverberating now, and Merkaba is what it truly is, a chariot or a vessel or a vehicle that allows us to connect with the spiritual being that we are. It is not that tank. It is not any of the lies that have been told. And so that's what people are, as has been said, are going to access the truth of what's been recovered. Not just today, but every time we put this in the macro, that's part of the resurrection, the recovery of truth process.
Amen.
Thank you. Yeah.
And amen again.
If I can add a 2 cent to this, what naming those tanks opened a door. And if those tanks had not been named, Nick would not have seen it. He would not have brought it up. He may not have researched it to the degree that he did. If they weren't going to name those tanks, because this has nothing to do with time, we would not have been talking about this 2 weeks prior. That was a door that opened, just like saying that the African is less than human was opening a door. And if that door had not been opened, would we be here on this line? Would history have been what it has been that we are very familiar with? So we look at all these things, and all these things are monstrous, and they are, but we are beginning or seeing them as for what they are. They are fuel. They are the energy that we must convert and move to enlightenment. And so in that sense, it is not have the monstrous intent that it was intended to, as we further desire to be truth and to bring about this community that we speak of every day that we're together. So thank you. I'm sorry, Pastor, I interrupted you before you were about to say something.
So all I was saying is another amen to what Audrey was saying. or as they say in Kemet, I say means, so let it be,
Yeah.
or so it is, I say. Because Amen is
Right.
speaking to Amon, Ra-Aman, the God.
Ashe.
Amen. I say, yeah. I say. I'm done.
Beautiful discussion. This may be a good place again to pause and reflect. I made note to myself to give Nick a call after this is over. I'll say it on the line. Always good to see you again, man. I don't know how busy you be, but you bring a tremendous value to these discussions. So, especially where we are now, when you can make it, you please do it. Be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your input today.
Thank
And
you.
everybody else, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Hey.
Oh, somebody else wanted to go.
I was just gonna say amen to that too.
Thank you. Sometimes I don't come because I don't feel like I need to be there. Sometimes I'm doing something, and in the last couple of weeks I was doing something, and I was actually traveling in Sedona, Arizona in the last week or so. Sedona is probably the capital of the white people new age spirituality, but it is a nice place, and it is very spiritually significant to a variety of people. But one of the things that I think we're witnessing and seeing and being a part of this year in particular is the wild acceleration of the essentially the downfall of the negative mindset that dominates much of our world. If you saw a Cat Williams interview, Cat Williams is many things, but he is aware on some level of the truth. And it's just interesting to see those kinds of things play out in popular culture as well. Yeah, I will be making more of a consistent appearance. So hopefully I'll have more input to give, which I will.
Nick, you know what you said. I really appreciate that, because if you don't feel like you need to be there, that means that you feel like you need to be someplace else. And it doesn't mean that you're disconnected. It simply means that your energy is needed someplace else. And that is true with us, if you're not there. So I do appreciate that, because there are more ways for us to leave for what the essence of our energy in places where it's needed more so than sometimes the discussions we're having, you know. So
yeah,
I can see that very clearly, very clearly. I'm done.
Yes, sir.
Well, to me, it seems like whether you're there or not, you're still
Still there.
part of whatever energy that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
put into the macro. And
Absolutely.
talking about the Merkaba is a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
actually,
You're right.
Yeah.
Pastor Richie, can you tell me that dream that you had, if you can, in the time?
You want me to tell you now? You want me to call you?
Oh, you can call me if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll call you. Okay. All right. I'll be very interested in knowing what you see in it too. Okay.
Can I ask this? And it's up to you guys. You can call them, but do you want to start off with that tomorrow? Because Nick's view on it may be something we all want to hear, and you're saying it again may be something that triggers something in someone else. Is it too much to ask to do it online, or would you guys call them is okay if that's what you guys want to do? But I would very much like to hear his input as to what he sees in it. Is that
I
okay
think-
with the two of you,
I
or
think it's important. I think it's important because otherwise you wouldn't have asked.
so Nick, you have time tomorrow, or
Yeah, I'll be on tomorrow.
okay?
Okay.
And-
Yeah,
and
but
that's-
yeah, I will call you anyway, Nick. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
This is for Mel. May I ask a question? I'm not sure where it is, but last night I was listening to the news and a commentary about voting and stuff, and it was mentioned that the Republicans are looking to recruit Black men to vote. And in my mind, I'm struggling with why would we even vote that way, and why are they specifically targeting Black men to vote? Is it just because they want they're
That's a
hoping
whole
that
new
population
discussion.
will make them win? That's a whole nother, okay.
Uh,
All right.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so many variables there. Separation between
Okay.
Black men and Black women.
All right.
Yeah, the idea of Black men being gullible and being a party to the white supremacist actions towards us. That's always been the case.
Thank you
I'll
for saying
I'll
that.
tell you one other thing. It started with Catholicism.
Okay.
At Nicaea, the Council at Nicaea was guided by a bishop named Stephen. Stephen was an African bishop. So,
All right.
yeah, there's always been the case. Okay. And,
Okay.
and the white dude who became the Pharaoh, he asked the priest of Kemet to make him a god. And they said no, he killed him. And finally he found some Black folk at Memphis who were priests and they made him a god. So always the same case with Black males. And Black males wonder why it is so difficult to settle down and relate intimately with the African female as opposed to putting her down so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And I'm sure we're not finished with that one either. I'm sure that'll be readdressed at some point. But thank you. Thank you for the question. Beautiful day.
If we
Beautiful
finish with that one, I'm shocked. Okay.
Well, we're not finished. I had a comment too, but let's hold on because we'll be another hour. We'll be
All
another
right.
hour on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is worthy of discussion as well. Any final thoughts on what we've already discussed today that you may have? Okay. Have a great day. Again, thank you for your input. Thank you for your energy, whether you've spoken or not. Thank you for your desires. We're in a good place. I trust that with all of my being. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.